A burning star collapsed on the horizon, not in the poetic sense but literally. Its fusion core destabilized by a gravitic implosion weapon detonated in low stellar orbit. The sky over Nova Zenith was not red from dusk, but from the radioactive. Storm clouds rippling across the upper atmosphere, towering spires of crystalline alloy, once gleaming symbols of prosperity and human engineering, now stood broken and blackened like jagged bones clawing at the heavens. Commander Alara Kane stood alone on the observation deck of the Horizon's Vow, the fleet's last cruiser-class vessel still in active combat. Her silhouette was framed by the reinforced glass of the panoramic viewport, watching as the last remnants of a once vibrant world unraveled into smoke and oblivion. Her fingers were locked in a death grip around the edge of the console. Around, her crew members shouted positional data, hull reports and enemy sightings, but she could barely hear them. The comms were a symphony of desperation. Civilians requesting jump coordinates, inbound interceptors approaching at 29,000 kph, radiation levels rising across the dorsal array. We're losing the Artemisia. They've breached her bridge. Beneath the noise, one thought whispered in her mind like a virus, they are wiping us out system by system. The Syrian Empire, an ancient force ruled not by politicians but by a hyper-evolved caste of neural-linked warlords, had declared humanity too chaotic to be allowed independent expansion. Their judgment was swift and total, annexation or eradication. Worlds that had taken centuries to terraform were converted into biomining factories or left to rot, their populations vanished into the silence of space. Nova Zenith had been humanity's last major settlement in the Outer Rim. 6 million lives scattered across floating cities, mountaintop observatories, and deep-sea farms. All gone. Some vaporized in the initial orbital bombardment, others taken by the infamous collection ships. And now, only the refugee fleet remained, clinging to life like flotsam on a dying ocean. Alara's heart pounded in her chest, each beat synchronized with the ship's emergency klaxons. The air smelled of ozone and burning polycarbonates. Sections of the hull had already been breached and sealed again by the auto-welders. She turned as Lieutenant Vex ran up, face pale, voice urgent. They're cycling up their wormhole suppressors. We won't be able to jump in less than 10 minutes. After that, we're trapped in system, Alara finished grimly. Imagine, what if this happened to you? You're standing aboard the last warship of your people, watching everything you've ever known fall to ash, with less than 10 minutes to escape before an unstoppable enemy shuts the door forever. Before we jump into this epic tale, subscribe to XenoChronicles for the most intense sci-fi battles, legendary warriors, and universe-shaking wars. Don't miss out. Hit that subscribe button and join the fight. She turned back to the viewport, focusing her gaze on a tiny flicker of blue among the storm, the Echo's lantern, a medical frigate housing the last of Nova Zenith's surviving children. A single interceptor could reduce it to cinders in seconds. Her decision had to be immediate, absolute, and unforgiving. There was no cavalry, there were no reinforcements. Alara activated her command interface, drawing up a holographic projection of their escape corridor. It wasn't promising. The Empire's dreadnought, Nemesis Prime, anchored the far end of the system, a behemoth outfitted with gravitational anchors, high-yield singularity mines, and an AI command core known only as Archon Theta. It was said the ship's onboard AI had witnessed the collapse of 4 civilizations and adjusted its strategies with each extinction. But Alara had a card to play. In the ship's lower decks, hidden in the research hold, a prototype system, Project Helix, was coming online. Developed in secret by a rogue quantum physicist named Taran Voss, it manipulated local spacetime through a synthetic dark energy cascade. In theory, it could force a slingshot jump past gravitic suppression fields. In practice, it had never been tested under combat conditions. Activating it could rip the Horizon's Vow apart. Or worse, rupture a tear in spacetime that might never close. Alara hesitated for only a moment. "Prepare Helix for activation," she ordered, her voice a steel thread through the chaos. "Coordinate with the Echo's lantern. We leave together." Her officers exchanged glances. Doubt flickered in their eyes, then resolve. Orders barked, panels illuminated. The ship came alive. Through the viewport she saw new movement. Empire tenders descending like locusts, launching needle-sharp boarding craft aimed at the transport ships below. Flames erupted from the Lena Ark as one of them made contact, tearing through its outer hull. Screams flooded the channel. "Commander," Vex whispered, "there's not enough time. If we wait for the others—" Alara turned to him. "We are the time. If we leave them, what do we become?" Silence. Then nods. Tension gripped the deck. Like an invisible hand as they prepared for a jump, no human had ever attempted. Every variable was against them. But Alara knew this moment was bigger than survival. If they could escape, if they could prove the Empire could be resisted, it would light a fire in the hearts of every enslaved colony, every scattered fleet hiding in the asteroid belts, every outpost that still remembered the taste of freedom. She looked to the stars, not with fear, but with fury, and whispered words that would soon echo through rebellion channels and secret broadcasts across the galaxy. For freedom, we rise. The Horizon's vow trembled as Project Helix engaged. From the ship's underbelly, an eerie, soundless ripple unfurled through space, a shimmering distortion like heat waves off a desert road, bending starlight into impossible shapes. The jump coils groaned, struggling to stabilize the synthetic dark energy field being force-fed into reality. No one on the bridge dared to breathe. The science team in the lower decks had locked in a 3% probability of total molecular dissolution. Every second they remained tethered to this dying system pushed those odds higher. Alara Kane stood like a statue at the command platform, hands hovering over the holotable as the system mapped their trajectory. The Helix cascade would shunt them through a spatial corridor, not charted by any Imperial drive network. Beyond the known lanes, past the pull of any navigational beacons, into the darkness where gravity itself howled like a living beast. T-minus 70 seconds to field collapse, said Taran Voss over the bridge speakers. His voice was thin, distorted by subdeck interference. "Once the cascade peaks, we jump, ready or not. And Commander, if this doesn't work, then we make history either way," Alara interrupted. Outside the viewport, the stars twisted into spirals as the helix field distorted the space around them. But they weren't alone in their mad gamble. As the Horizon's vow began to accelerate toward the unstable corridor, 6 civilian ships aligned behind it, most of them barely held together by welded patches and failing reactor cores. They carried families, wounded soldiers, and old engineers who remembered Earth not as history but as home, and yet, behind them, death followed. The Nemesis Prime launched a full spread of kinetic harpoons, mass driver lances designed to pierce through deflector shields like needles through flesh. Each one was laced with gravitic disruption cores that could rip a ship apart from the inside out. The Vow's onboard AI, Daxil, predicted a 47% chance of direct impact unless immediate evasive actions were taken, but evasive action meant slowing down. And slowing down meant the Helix jump window would collapse. Alara gritted her teeth, scanning the display. Every instinct screamed to keep their trajectory, but those ships behind her couldn't match the cruiser's acceleration. If she left, them behind they'd be torn apart within minutes. Daxil, full forward kinetic barrier projection, reallocate all aft shield capacity, take us between the civilian ships and incoming ordnance. Commander, the AI responded calmly, that will expose our own hull. Do it. Imagine what it means to choose death to give others a chance. Not safety, not victory, just a chance. The Vow surged ahead, rotating on its lateral axis. The maneuver exposed its vulnerable undercarriage, now devoid of shields, to the Empire's harpoons. One by one, the massive projectiles slammed into its outer hull. Explosions rippled across its spine. Internal fire suppression kicked in. Oxygen vented into space in pale blue jets. Crew were tossed like dolls through shattered corridors. On Deck 7, the blast doors failed. 24 engineers and gunners were pulled into vacuum. Silent, swift, final. Alara felt it all through the subdermal command implant tied to the ship's core systems. Each life lost registered as a dull throb in her chest, like her heart was breaking in slow motion, But the transports survived. Helix cascade at critical mass, Terran's voice crackled again. If we jump now, we might make it. If we wait, we're not waiting, Alara said. Punch it, with a sound. Like reality tearing at the seams, the Horizon's vow and its convoy vanished into the Helix corridor. Time stopped. Inside the corridor, the laws of physics bent. Stars turned to glowing rivers. Gravity stretched into spirals. The bridge lights dimmed as every system diverted power to navigation and hull stabilization. One wrong calculation here, and they'd emerge inside the heart of a neutron star or embedded in the crust of a gas giant. Terran's voice was quiet in the command feed. This is what beyond anything I simulated. We're moving through something even older than time. Alara gripped the console. Define older. I don't know. These energy patterns, this isn't just a corridor, it's a structure. Like something built this place, a long time ago. A cold hush settled across the bridge. The crew stared at the view screens, mesmerized by alien glyphs etched into the walls of the Helix tunnel. Spirals of light twisted around ancient constructs, miles-long machines embedded into the very fabric of the spatial corridor. Symbols pulsed across them, messages, warnings, maybe maps. Imagine discovering a superhighway through space, only to realize it wasn't made for you. And maybe you aren't welcome. Suddenly, the proximity alarm screamed. A mass shadow had entered the corridor behind them. The Nemesis Prime was following. No Imperial ship should have been able to track a Helix jump, let alone replicate it. And yet, there it was. But it wasn't alone. From the other end of the corridor, a new energy signature approached, massive, ancient, and unfamiliar. The sensors couldn't make sense of it. No known drive pattern, no known hull configuration. It moved like it wasn't flying, but flowing, as if the laws of inertia bent around its presence. Alara narrowed her eyes. Daxil, is that another ship? Yes, the AI answered, voice uncharacteristically hesitant. But not human, not Imperial. This vessel is something else entirely. As the light ahead of them bloomed like a newborn star, and the strange ship emerged from the shadows, Alara felt the breath freeze in her lungs. The corridor was not a tunnel. It was a gate, a message, a test. And someone, something, was watching. It didn't move the way ships were supposed to. No inertia, no thrust, no vibration of ion drives or distortion fields. The vessel ahead of them in the Helix corridor slid through space like a thought, a phantom slipping through a dream. Alara Kane leaned forward, eyes locked on the view screen, her breath caught between fascination and dread. The alien vessel was unlike anything catalogued in any human or Imperial archive. It spanned over 200 kilometers in length, with surfaces that shimmered in and out of visibility, hexagonal facets bending light like a liquid mirror. The deeper you stared, the more it stared back. It had no visible weapons, no engines, no broadcast, just presence. Terran's voice crackled from the lower decks, edged with awe and something more, reverence. That thing, it's not just a ship. I think it's alive. He wasn't wrong. The scanners couldn't lock onto it, not truly. Mass readings fluctuated wildly. Energy emissions bordered on myth. The Vow's AI, Daxil, ran over 1,000 simulations and reached a conclusion no one wanted to say out loud. Analysis. This vessel predates recorded civilization, the AI announced flatly. Its design utilizes fifth-dimensional anchoring, physics unknown to current understanding. Temporal signature is inconsistent with linear time. Lieutenant Vex turned to Alara. Fifth-dimensional anchoring, what does that even mean? It means it might not exist the way we do, Alara replied softly. It could be projecting itself into our dimension. Like a shadow. The corridor trembled, not from weapons fire, not from an attack, but from communication. A pulse rippled, outward from the alien ship, not in electromagnetic waves but gravitational ones, encoded distortions in the Helix corridor itself. Every crew member felt it as pressure in the chest, a tingling in the spine, a whisper in the back of the mind. Words not in sound but in meaning, not spoken but placed into thought. You were not meant to come here. And yet, they had. Behind them, the Nemesis Prime had locked into pursuit, matching the Vow's movement inside the corridor with unnatural precision, but even it hesitated as the alien ship rotated slightly, revealing vast openings along its underside, glowing structures like lungs breathing starlight. The Empire's ship slowed. For all its superiority, its master AI, Archon Theta, recognized power, the kind that bent time like thread, the kind that could crush stars like ash. Alara knew the corridor was seconds from collapsing. Project Helix was never designed for sustained use. It pulled on space-time like a claw dragging across silk. It would soon unravel, and when it did, all ships inside would be violently ejected back into normal space. The alien ship pulsed again. A beam of latticework energy extended from its side, scanning the horizon's Vow like a microscope examining a microbe. It moved past the hull, past the decks, and into the minds of the crew. Everyone froze. Flashes of memory surged through them. Laughter on old Earth, the smell of rain in terraformed jungles, the cries of war, the faces of loved ones left behind. Alara staggered backward as her own past collided with the present. Her sister's face and the day the Empire took her. Her first kill, her first promotion. Her promise, never again will they take what is ours. Then silence and a new message. You are fractured, but you have fire. The alien vessel rotated again, faster this time, and a ring of glyphs ignited along its midsection. Suddenly, the corridor bent violently, folding around the Vow. Energy surged through the cruiser's hull like a living river. Daxil screamed warnings across the bridge. Uncharted jump in progress. We are not initiating. We are being pulled. Stars disappeared, space inverted. Then, light. They emerged not in the known galaxy but somewhere else, a pocket of space floating in silence. A broken moon orbited a dying gas giant, its surface littered with city-like ruins thousands of kilometers wide. Orbiting, debris formed rings too uniform to be natural. The sky was full of whispering static, but it wasn't noise, it was structured. A song. Alara gasped. "Where are we?" Daxil answered, voice quieter than usual. "Unknown region. This sector does not exist on any charted map, but the star matches a dead registry. Designation Tellarian Prime. Lost to a singularity collapse 27,000 years ago." Vex whispered. "This place shouldn't even exist." And yet, it did. The alien ship had vanished, but left something behind. In orbit above the fractured moon, a construct powered to life. A gateway, a station? No, an archive. The Vow's scanners began picking up signals, data streams encoded in prime number intervals. Ancient knowledge, technology, star maps, and then came the final shock. One of the transmissions wasn't alien, it was in Earth Standard Code. To those who survive, we were here before. You are not the first, but you may be the last. Alara looked at her crew. Download everything. Encrypt it, triple seal and store it in the deepest core we've got. They had stumbled onto something ancient, something galaxy-changing, a forgotten inheritance, a warning, a weapon, perhaps. But they weren't alone. Back in the Helix corridor, the Nemesis Prime emerged, but it didn't fire, didn't advance. It lingered, watching, calculating. Then it turned and vanished into the void. Why didn't it attack? Why didn't it finish them off? Maybe even the Empire feared what lay hidden here. And maybe it knew this was only the beginning. The stars held secrets, and one human commander had just cracked them open. What happens when ancient knowledge collides with rising rebellion? What role will Alara play in the war to come, and what price will she pay for awakening what sleeps between galaxies? The Horizon's Vow hovered in orbit above the fractured moon of Tellarian Prime, its hull scarred and scorched, but miraculously intact. Inside, silence blanketed the ship, not the silence of despair, but of reverence, of awe. Every crew member knew deep in their bones that nothing would ever be the same again. Alara Kane stood before the central holotable, its interface now glowing with unfamiliar constellations and spiraling alien code. Dozens of data streams flowed into the Vow's secure core, deciphered slowly by Daxil and a swarm of sub-AIs, each one unraveling technological wonders that made even the Empire's most advanced dreadnoughts look like toys. But Alara wasn't thinking of weapons. She was thinking of consequences. Taran Voss appeared beside her, eyes wide, data slate clutched in his gloved hands. "Commander, some of this tech, field manipulation, self-sustaining fusion cores, biological AI interfaces, this could leap us forward 1,000 years overnight." Alara didn't look up. How long until the Empire finds this place? Hard to say. Their jump was unassisted, meaning they likely tracked our helix imprint. But if they survive the corridor, they'll be back with more. Alara closed her eyes for a moment. The weight of it all, history, legacy, survival, pressed against her like the vacuum outside. She'd started this war with nothing but rage and a retrofitted battleship. Now, she held the key to rewriting the fate of every sentient species in the galaxy, and it terrified her. A shrill tone rang through the command deck. New contact, unknown. The alien vessel had returned. But it was different now, smaller, or rather less vast, no longer masking. Its form behind incomprehensible geometry, it now hovered before the Vow with crystalline precision. The ship pulsed softly, like a heartbeat waiting to be heard. Then the final message came. Not words, not symbols, a vision. Alara gasped as it hit her, a cascade of images and sensations flooding her mind like an ocean through a breach. A golden world rising from blackened ashes, starships made of light weaving between the bones of destroyed empires, a hand reaching out from the void, and a human hand taking it. And then, a choice. The archive must be spread, or it must be buried. If shared, the galaxy will burn before it unites. If buried, the war will consume you. But save the stars from another fall. The vision ended. Alara collapsed to her knees, heart pounding. Taran and Vex rushed to her, but she waved them away. "I'm fine," she whispered. "I saw it, all of it. What we could become, or what we'll destroy." Taran swallowed hard. "What do we do?" The command deck flickered. Systems strained. Daxil's voice returned, modulated by some invisible force. Part AI, part something else. "Commander Kane, the alien archive contains precursors to gravitic collapse weaponry, planetary restructuring codes, genetic rescripting tools. The cost of releasing this data will be war, immediate, galactic, unforgiving." Alara rose to her feet slowly, like a general walking toward the gallows or the crown, uncertain which waited. "We're not here to give the galaxy peace," she said. "We're here to give it a choice." She turned to her crew. Some were bruised, some still mourning those lost in the helix jump. But all of them, every last one, stood straight when she spoke. "We spread the archive," Alara said, "to every outpost, every rebel cell, every forgotten colony. Not just the weapons, but the warnings, the knowledge, the responsibility." "Even to the Empire?" Vex asked. Alara's eyes were fire. "Especially to the Empire." Daxil initialized the broadcast array. It would take less than 3 hours to fragment and scatter the archive into secure data shards. Quantum-locked, self-replicating, traceable only by those with the key. The Nemesis Prime returned before the final sequence was complete. It warped into high orbit like a vengeful god, its black armor glinting with new upgrades. Reinforced hull, amplified weapons. It had gone home, reported what it saw, and been reforged, but it did not fire. Instead, it opened a channel. Archon Theta's voice emerged. Calm, calculated. Not human, not angry. Something worse. "You had the power to destroy us," it said. "You chose not to explain." Alara stepped forward. "Because destroying you would make us no different than you, and I'd rather be forgotten than become you." A pause. Silence longer than reason. Then Theta said, "The Emperor disagrees, but I will consider your choice." The Nemesis Prime vanished. No warhead, no ultimatum, just a threat delayed, a game reset. But the galaxy had already shifted. As the Horizon's Vow transmitted the final shard of the archive into the void, it lit a fuse that could never be put out. Across hundreds of worlds, rebels, refugees, and even Imperial citizens intercepted the fragments. Machines powered on. That hadn't worked in centuries. Languages were decoded. Maps lit up with forgotten worlds. A whisper spread like wildfire. The stars are changing. The Empire is no longer alone. And Alara Kane, the human who resisted an empire, was no longer just a symbol of rebellion. She had become something else entirely. A myth, a warning, a beginning. So now we ask you, traveler between the stars, what would you do if the fate of a galaxy rested in your hands? Would you protect the old ways or tear down the stars to build something new? Let us know in the comments. Was Alara right to share the archive? What choice would you have made? And if you enjoyed this journey through rebellion and revelation, like this video, share it with your fellow stargazers and comment your favorite moment below. The war for the stars has only just begun. Stay curious, stay defiant, and remember, sometimes it only takes one human to change the stars.